Welcome to another episode of Subtropical Gardening, where we focus on successful gardening in the warm climates, tropical, subtropical, and the warm temperate areas. In fact, anywhere in the world, you can watch this podcast if you are interested in the plants that work in the warmer climates. Each week, we will be featuring a plant or a group of plants to basically expand your horticultural knowledge and to improve the range of plants everyone grows. If you do like our series of podcasts, please give it a thumbs up and a follow. We greatly appreciate your support. This week, I'll be tackling a particular plant that is regarded as old-fashioned, the nanny plant. Olden gardens always have this tucked in the back corner or near the loo or the shed, and they use it for medicinal purposes. However, the new varieties on the market flower for an incredible long period of time with a spectrum of flower colors ranging from tall trees all the way down to little tiny pot plant size specimens. They come in a range of colors, which makes them highly attractive to the birds, the bees, and the butterflies because of the nectar and the pollen that they carry. So they tick so many boxes suitable for home gardeners and designers, which is why councils use them, developers, designers use them, and they are a favorite in the palette of plants that are used. In fact, if you are using kangaroo paws in a warm climate, a subtropical humid climate, throw away the kangaroo paws. These are a much better plant for you to grow. They are almost indestructible. I can propagate them by cuttings. I can propagate them from seed. They are so easy to grow and low maintenance. And we'll talk about that very, very soon. The group of plants obviously is the aloes. So I'm going to talk and bring up someone who knows a little bit more about aloes as to where they are from, and we can hear from Mike Dent from Aloe Horticulture where they are native to.
It's come from generally from Africa. There are some that are grown towards Persia, but predominantly they are from Africa.
So basically, the distribution range is from the tropical and South Africa areas and Madagascar, Jordan to the Arabian Peninsula and northwest India. That is the range of which these plants tend to grow. And there is 592 recognized species of aloe. So there's more than just aloe vera, folks. There are so many. I know in my garden, I was a member of the Succulent Society. I collected numerous amounts. In fact, I think I've roundabout got at least 15, maybe 20 pure species of aloe. Then I've also got all of the cultivars and varieties and the interesting other forms that are on the market. So I do like them. Some people think I'm from South Africa, but I'm not. I'm an Australian born here. But the thing is, these plants, anyone can grow them in any warm climate. You can grow them in Tasmania, Melbourne, New South Wales, Queensland, from the tropics, everywhere. So to give you a better idea as to the range, I'm going to bring up Mike Dent for some of his comments about how to grow and where they grow.
The aloe range is a range of hybrid aloes bred specifically for big flowering, but not only big flowering, bred for garden conditions. So they're more able to cope with a wider range of garden conditions we have in Australia, be that Mediterranean, tropical, or dry zone.
And as I mentioned, I like to grow these. I've got a very steep spot in one of my areas, full sun, under gum trees. These things grow really well. I do not water them. I do not fertilize them. I basically ignore them. Under the gum trees, it's very competitive with the gum trees extracting all the water and all the nutrients out of the soils. And I have found the aloes incredibly tough and reliable growing in these conditions. In fact, when I get a lot of visitors, they comment on how good they're growing, and when they flower throughout that autumn, winter, spring period, how stunningly beautiful they are in flower and with all the bird life and the bees. So why do landscapers choose these particular plants? Well, they are tough, as I've said. I've seen them in botanic gardens, along public transport corridors. I've seen them obviously along the roadways, in resorts, hotels, high-end residential, home backyard gardeners. These plants are really tough. Even if you live in a unit and you have a balcony or even a windowsill, I'm sure you can find one aloe that will suit you. And Mike Dent has another little comment regarding why they are so popular with the landscape architects and designers.
Landscape architects and landscapers are increasingly using these range of aloes for a number of reasons. One, because there's different features. Some of them are tree growing ones, some are shrubs, some are ground covers. And the other thing is the flowering, prolific flowering. So with some cultivars one can get up to 6 months or even in some cases 12 months of flowering.
So that's basically, it covers virtually every possible need you might find to buy these particular plants and to grow them. In terms of ease of care, as I've said, I virtually do nothing to them. At most, I pluck some of the old dead stems from them, but I don't water them. I do not fertilize them. But if you do fertilize them in a pot, you will get more flowers. You will get a nicer looking plant. I'm a bit of a tough gardener when it comes to trying to figure out which plants work best with minimal care. And for that reason, I put plants in pretty stressful conditions to prove what plants work and what plants don't. I do know a lot of marketing goes into a whole range of different plants, and they say this is good for the tropics, this is good for the subtropics, and I know they do not work. Whereas these plants have proven, test year after year, proven that they have succeeded. I wish I got paid for this, but I just love this group of plants, which is why I grow them. So a little bit more from Michael Dent regarding the kind of care, the maintenance needed by these particular plants.
These are easy plants for landscapers, home gardeners, councils. They really are simply plant. Every year they'll perform with big flowering flowers. They're very low maintenance. They'll survive the dry times. They'll survive the wet times. Probably the only maintenance really is deadheading the flowers once they've flowered, but that's not even necessary.
So that's true. All I do is whenever the flower stalk has finished, when the flower stalk has finished flowering, I just find the old dead brown bits and I just pull them out of the plant. I don't need secateurs or anything. Once they're brown, they just come out nice and easy, incredibly low maintenance. In fact, some of the plants, when they flower, I leave them. They just kind of collapse where they are. And that's basically it. Now, there's another little comment. I'm going to come back towards the end with one more comment from Michael Dent. Now, I'm just going to go through a whole range of some of the varieties and species that are on the market. Not the whole range, but just some of them. And just to explain, I've been growing them at my place for my various residences probably for well over 40 years. Started with just a few, and then I expanded, and then I got into just the species, and then the Aloe range, and then I bought some of those. I've also had trialed my hand at a little bit of seed raising, and they grow quite well. But be aware that the cultivar varieties with a branded name, they won't grow true from seed, so you can't grow those from seed. They are protected. They are kind of like a controlled plant, and they're only propagated by commercial nurseries by division. So they're really good for some of the biggest displays you will get, and the uniformity of those flowers is absolutely outstanding. So I'm just going to go through some of these different varieties. So to give you an idea, let's see where I am on this camera. Okay, so this is at the Brisbane Botanic Gardens. Let me see my arrow. Okay, so down the bottom, do my arrows hands right. So this is one of the garden beds at Brisbane Botanic Gardens. You've got the aloes at the front, and I think that's a Andongensis right at the back. But at a certain time of the year, you just get the foliage, and it's all this foliage texture which is really attractive. They basically have the same shape, a succulent-like rosette plant. But come autumn and winter, and you can just see a few of the flowers just coming up the back and the back of that image there. I'm going to probably change the setting on one of my future images so I can be more in the middle of the image and see how that goes. But let's move forward with another slide. Just got to choose the slide. There it is. Okay, another image of the Brisbane Botanic Gardens. And what you find is some aloes in the front. The bluish plant roundabout parallel there is Senecio blue chalk stick. And you've got some more aloes flowering and some more aloes in the background. Don't know why my camera just moved again. And then we'll move on a little bit more. But mass planting, they really do look stunning, and it really showcases the foliage texture. And this is one of the things a lot of the landscape architects look for. And I will be raising a very interesting feature about the aloes when I come up to one of the species. One of my favorite aloes, which I grow at the main entrance of my house when you drive towards down the driveway, is this particular one aloe. It's probably one of the ones that I fell in love with to start with. Anyway, moving on. So this is one of the first species I'm going to be featuring, Aloe acutissima. And there are a couple of different varieties and subspecies of this, but it's a much more smaller growing with a petite reddish flower. So most of the aloes are within the red spectrum. You do get yellows, oranges, there's a peachy pink as well, and we'll talk about those when we get to them. But as I said, aloes come from anywhere from very small ground hugging tight plants all the way up to very tall trees. Next one is Aloe andongensis. And this is a nice, beautiful dark green leaf with a nice cluster of a candelabra of a flower set. This Aloe arborescens aurea. Now, arborescens is regarded as a weed in some areas, so you do have to be careful with your selection of aloes. And arborescens has been listed, as I said, a weed in many councils. The yellow one is still highly desirable. There's also a variegated form on the with collectors, but I rarely ever see the arborescenses for sale. And I think for the reason it is kind of listed like a weed. But this one was in flower at the Mount Coot-tha Botanic Gardens as a feature plant. So definitely a beautiful plant if you love yellow. Then you've got stunning, absolutely vibrant, like red hot poker type of Nephophia plants. Aloe branddraaiensis. I said it before. Branddraaiensis. This is a fairly tall one. You're looking at about 1.5 meters to 2 meters in total. The flower spikes are the things that stick right up, as I said, red hot pokers. The mix of color is really, really striking with the hot, dark red at the very top, which is basically the young bud of the flower, and then as it matures it fades towards an orange and then it opens up with the yellow. So those two-tone aloes are incredibly popular and highly desirable for most clients and most landscapers. Aloe cameronii. This is one of my favorites. I love the fact that it is only a low grower, approximately about 1 meter at height. The foliage stays extremely low. I'm talking about maybe 30 centimeters high. And then it gets completely covered with these flowers, which are anywhere between, say, a kind of like a dark kind of a tangerine color to an orange. I've seen a few color variations of this particular plant, and I've just mass planted it in one of my areas under the gum trees, and I just love it when it comes in flower. The flowers are individually very small, but when mass planted, it is a beautiful, beautiful display. Then you've got the vibrant oranges of Aloe capitata. So it's got a very nice dense head, nice light green foliage. It's a beautiful, stunning, brilliant looking plant. It really does catch your eye when you walk past it. And right now, this week, which is the first full weekend in July, it is in full bloom up at Mount Coot-tha Botanic Gardens. This is a chabaudii. Let me just go back a few steps. I think I got something, got too mixed up before. Sorry, cameronii. My apologies. I confused chabaudii with cameronii. So cameronii does this, if I can show you. During winter, when it's stressed and the irrigation and the rainfall is very low, the leaves will go a very dark, I've got to put it in front of me actually, it goes a dark red color. And it is a way that the plant preserves moisture by extracting some of the chlorophyll out of the leaves. And what I love about this particular plant, this is cameronii, the flower spike, sorry, is a darkish red, is that in winter, the leaves turn this color and then the flower comes up. So you get this darkish red flower, like a burnt red, and then up against this kind of browny red foliage. I think it's absolutely beautiful. This is the one next to my driveway, and I remember seeing it once at Mount Coot-tha Botanic Gardens in its glory of red foliage, and I think I actually fell in love with that one. It's one of my two favorite aloes I own. Let's go back up to chabaudii. That's the one I've mass planted in my garden. Very tiny little flowers. It's kind of like little sprinkles over the plant itself. And when the light catches it from the other side, it is very, very pretty. This is a little ground cover hugging plant, rarely seen in the market, Aloe ciliaris, tidmarshii. It has had a name change. It's no longer Aloes ciliaris. I will talk about the other one when the name change when I bring up the other image. It's more like a sprawling ground cover, but a nice, vibrant yellow flower. Then you've got my number two. Actually, this is my one of two favorite plants in the garden. This is Aloe dorotheae. I just find the vibrance of the green of the leaves absolutely stunning. It's a very low growing, compact, ground hugging plant. The flowers have a nice, strong, erect shape and form to them. And in winter, when it's dry, those leaves turn orange. I mean, it is like the ground is on fire. This is absolutely divine, this plant. Everything about it, low maintenance, foliage color, flower color. I would say if you're after one aloe, one aloe species, please find Aloe dorotheae. She is absolutely one of my favorites. Then you've got Aloe flex. I, sometimes I say these right, sometimes I don't. Flexilifolia. So a semi-procumbent plant, kind of scrambles over itself. Nice long green leaves with an orangey red flower. Not commonly seen. You will see it up in flower at Mount Coot-tha Botanic Gardens, and it is worthwhile heading up there so you can see the diversity that is on the market. Next one was a fair way away from me, so I had to kind of zoom in. Aloe mutabilis, darkish, fire orangey red flowers, quite nice. A very erect flower spike above the very low growing foliage. Then you've got Aloe petricola, grown mainly for its foliage. It's kind of like a bluey grey hue with an orange tint to the spines on the outside. So spines, okay. So some of the spines are kind of sharp. If you run your fingers up one way, they're not sharp. Run it the other way, they are sharp. But I have found that some of the aloes have very soft spines, and it's worthwhile when you go shopping for aloes. Don't be afraid of the spines. Actually put your hands on them and determine if they are too sharp for you. I find with the aloes, the real true species have the more fierce spines, whereas the cultivar and the varieties, most of them have been bred to soften the spines. Not all. I have seen some that are vicious, but I do like the spines as a form of deterrent. So if you're looking for a plant to stop people walking through your yard if you're on a corner, or you want to stop people walking through a garden bed if it's a commercial site, aloes are wonderful. You get the flowers, you get low maintenance, you get the foliage, and the spines will stop people walking through those gardens. Aloe vogstii, dark, beautiful, dark, almost forest emerald green foliage with these orangey flowers. Beautiful, beautiful. The blend of nature with the aloe group is absolutely stunning. Now this, I uh, I love orange. I love orange, and I love yellow. The two combinations I think are underutilized in gardens. So this is and was Aloe ciliaris, and this is the new name for this particular species, Aloiampelos. I probably said it wrong. It's still ciliaris at the end, but you've got this massive light green and then these yellow spires sticking up like flames out of the plant. Beautiful. Again, mass planting is some of the best things you can do with the group of aloes because you end up getting this wonderful carpet texture of the foliage and then the flowers sticking up. And the flowers come at the time of the year when a lot of other plants aren't in flower. So they're very important for the bees, the pollinators, and the birds. So environmentally, it kind of ticks a lot of boxes. And that understory under the foliage, again, really good habitat for blue-tongued lizards, some snakes, and a few other things as well. So I think they are a wonderful, good environmental sensitive plant to use. But be aware, some species could be weedy, so check your local council. Then you've got some of the cultivars. So I've brought in some of the cultivars into the presentation. I've just got to check which ones I've brought with me here at the table. So copper showers is one of the most popular, and I'm not too sure. I think this is copper showers. It has a lot of similarity. I lost the label in the garden. But it is a tall spike. I've got to bring this into the thing. So this sticks up around about 60, 70 centimeters out the top of the plant. The plant itself is quite low, probably only about 40, 50 centimeters high. So overall, with flower, about 1 to 1.3 meters high. Beautiful plant. But the copper shower apparently is one of the most popular aloes used by councils and developers because it flowers for a very long time. This is Eric the Red. Now, if you want something striking and stunning and tall, this is your go-to plant. It is stately. You only might need 1 or 3 for the entire yard. But if you've got a long acreage property or a long driveway, having these as sentinels along your driveway would be absolutely striking. Then you've got first gold. Now this gets its name because it is the first of the flowering aloes of the season and gold color, and it flowers for a very long period of time. That photo was taken on the western side of a plant with the morning sun coming through it, and its intense orangey yellow color was absolutely beautiful. I went with a group of people and all of us took photos of the same plant because it was striking. And I have to admit, I don't yet have that one, and I will because it's yellow. This is ivory tower. Now, when you buy some of these plants, this is about the size of the plant you'll end up buying. Pretty small, comes with a fancy label. Let me put it there so you can read it. Ivory tower. And it gives all the instructions on the label about height and care and things. But this is a really good size for home gardeners to buy because they can take it home, look after it, and after a little while it grows into that with that beautiful flower. Then you've got moon glow. And since we just talked about one ivory tower, then there's ivory dawn. Okay, where's my camera? There's my camera. There she is. Well, there she is. So this is ivory dawn. It's much broader leaves. The spines are not as big as ivory tower. The flower is kind of a bit more peachy. Yeah, and big and beautiful it will be. Absolutely gorgeous. Pink passion. Now, this is one where when a group of us walked past it, we weren't too sure how to describe the color. It was kind of like peachy pink. I called it peach and someone else called it pink, and then we found out it was pink passion. And I have to admit, it's different. And I think this one would go very well in cottage gardens, as a couple of others like fairy pink. So this is fairy pink. I don't have an image of the flower. Sorry, folks. Smaller grower, petite, fine little spines. They're actually quite soft. I'll see if I can bring the image in. Fairy pink. The label is washed out. You can't see. It's basically almost like a pure white flower with a tint of pink in it. Sparkler. Now, I have to admit, I didn't think I'd like this one, but I do. It's kind of like a little tiny rosette with this spike of a yellow sticking out of it, and looks like a little octopus with its legs sticking out, with its tentacles sticking out. Yeah, I do like the unusual plants. So that's sparkler. Now, sparkler also, um, probably because of the colors, it's kind of it. I know in the light, in the sunlight, it kind of did look a little bit sparkly. So I don't know why. It must have been some of the nectar on the flowers themselves. And then this one is spots and dots. Now it gets its name because there are spots and dots on the leaves, and I have to admit, when it's not in flower, I did not like it. In fact, I have been offered a freebie of that in the past, and I said no thanks. However, I then saw this in flower and I went, oh my goodness, I have to get it. The flower is orange and yellow and green, kind of like a lime yellow in there. And this again was the sunlight was on the other side of the plant, and the morning sun was coming through the flowers, and it was absolutely stunning. And I think placement of this plant is critical to get the best impact of this plant. Foliage doesn't do anything for me, but the flowers are absolutely stunning. And this is, I think I've got the name right for this one, tangerine tree. Now, tangerine tree, I think is an absolute stunner. This is a very large growing specimen, large flowers. One of the parents is Thurascii, species Thurascii, which is, I have to admit, one of the very first aloes I tried to grow, one of the first species, because I just fell in love with all of the images I found on the internet, except it needs a sandy soil, well-drained soil, and I lived in an area which did not have that soil, so it died. But this is a hybrid, and I think I'm going to have to buy one. Um, the intensity, the boldness of that orange, it's like this big cone, and I just think as a stunning, striking feature plant, this is your statement plant. And tricolor, an absolute gorgeous, mesmerized two-tone plant. Tricolor implies three. I think it's just red at the top, orange maybe in the middle, and yellow at the bottom. To me, it looks two-color. This is beautiful. It is eye-poppingly the stunner of the collection. And I think, again, this is the one that will be most commonly planted in gardens, professional or in commercial sites. And Tusker. This is almost ghostly. This is something almost ethereal. The color tone on that is soft and subtle. These are big plants. This was a spike of around about 1.5 meters high. The actual spire of the flower itself was easily probably about 50 centimeters to 70 centimeters tall. Nice big fat cone. It was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. A nice contrast compared to all the other reds and dark oranges. And Little Venus, very popular, low growing, two-tone, very popular, easy to get hold of. And winter bells, very popular. This one is also iconic because it gets that red foliage in winter. I was talking about the cameronii that I'm holding, does that same thing, but this one has a very distinctive red foliage, thin, small, low growing. I'm probably less than 15 centimeters tall. And then these little spikes of flowers that stick up again in winter. So Great little plant to use if you have a small space, a balcony, a patio, or just want a little filler in a pot. This is a cute little plant to consider. And let's go back to our first seed. So that's the range. I mean, obviously you can get little tiny petite plants like these. This is a little cutting that a division I did of one big plant to make some fresh new plants. So when it comes to propagating, if you are growing the species, it is a case of you can cut the whole top of it off with the foliage, then clear some of the older leaves off and then let it dry for a while. I've let them dry for at least 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks in winter, probably a little bit less in summer. I just cut them off, put them on the ground in a partly shady area. I leave them alone. It doesn't have to be in a bone dry area. Do not water it. Just leave it alone, and it will callus up itself. It might drop some of the lower leaves. That's perfectly fine. You can peel those off when they become desiccated and brown, and then you can pot it up. Now, I know a few cases at home where I have cut the tops off and I've left them on the ground a bit too long, and then they have created lateral roots when the plant was still sitting like that and the head was up here, and then it rooted in, so it ended up going upwards. So you do have to kind of monitor once the roots start to develop. I would recommend, if you do want to do a fair few cuttings, grab some empty 300ml pot or buckets and just sit them upright in those buckets. Please make sure there's holes in the bottom of the bucket in case any rainfall falls in those buckets or irrigation, so it drains out. You do not want the base of your aloe cuttings sitting in water. Think of nature. They come from dry areas. So when a piece drops off in an arid desert, it's dry. They just heal themselves over and then they develop their roots. So just replicate that as what happens in nature and all should be fine. I find that most of the plants, the aloes, will root within a few weeks, but don't pot it into a potting mix with irrigation until it is healed and at least until some of the roots are seen. I always just leave them out until probably 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I've always had success, no failures, and that's the best way to grow them as cuttings. So if you have one of the cultivar varieties, you can make pups from the divisions or the pups that come off. Seed raising, I mentioned earlier. If you want to grow the true species, collect the seed and sow them. They pop up very easily. However, they also like to cross-pollinate. So if you have 2 different species nearby, they will cross and you'll get a hybrid. So it will not be the same as parent A or parent B. Be aware of that. If you want to keep to the true genetics, you have to separate each of the species in different areas of the garden. Now, when it comes to the cultivar varieties such as all of these aloe, the range, they are what we call PBR, Plant Breeders' Rights Protected, which means you can't propagate them and sell them without a license. Growing them from seed won't come true to type, so you won't get the same thing. So my recommendation for the aloe range is to go to a garden centre and buy the plants. For these others, split, divide, make cuttings for the true species, and you will be pleasantly surprised with the range of aloes that you can grow. And yes, I do grow miscellaneous plants from seed. I like to see what comes up. I also sell miscellaneous seedlings to certain landscapers who just want aloes to fill up their landscape projects. Otherwise, I direct them towards specific growers who grow the cultivar varieties of aloes. Now, a final word from Mike Dent regarding the range of growing.
Many people believe that aloes are desert plants. However, whilst there are some aloe species that grow in deserts, this range is a range that tolerates a wide range of conditions, tropical conditions, dry conditions, and really in times of rain they thrive. They love the rain as long as the soil is free draining.
And that's basically what I want to feature today, which is all about the aloe range of plants. Now, I love them for numerous reasons, as I have discussed. And I do hope you have liked this video, the information and some of the images I have presented. Now, I do grow a lot more pure species than what I have presented here, and mainly because they are not in flower right now. I decided not to actually feature them in this particular video. And I do have them predominantly in one area on my property, which faces true north at the base of gum trees in really harsh conditions on a slope. And as I said, I do not water it. I do not fertilize them. I don't really do much to them. I let the birds do their stuff. And I am sure there are snakes in there, and I have no intent going in there. But this is part of the acreage where I live. I try to create habitat for the birds, the bees, the snakes, the reptiles, the echidnas, the wallabies, the whole gamut of creatures that are on this property. But also, I like to appreciate the beauty of them. And mass planting aloes, I think, is a great benefit, a great feature you can do if you have the space. So, anything else to do with gardening? Well, here in southeast Queensland, it is winter. It's been chilly at night. People have had fireplaces around where I live. Some of the plants are kind of dormant. On a personal note, I had a cow break in from next door neighbors, and they walked through and ate all my daylilies, ate the tops of some of my cordyline, ate some euphorbia poinsettias, which are regarded as poisonous. So I hope the cow is okay. But the cow wasn't here the next day, and just munched on a few other plants. No other significant damage, although did flatten a few other plants. And I'm sure that they will come back, so I don't really need to worry too much about those particular plants. But I have now fixed the fence, so the cow cannot come back in, and hopefully my plants will recuperate in spring. And apart from that, folks, I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and the following week I will do another subtropical gardening podcast, and I'll upload it. And if you are a subscriber, you will get notification immediately, and that's the best way to follow subtropical gardening. And that's me for today. Happy gardening, everybody.